This field looked a little dirty. I thought I'd sweep up. No, I'm just kidding. I'd just like to demonstrate a little bit what I do in a snow situation. I know it's summertime now, but it's a good way to start planning for your season. You're going to have to buy a few things or get a few things made up for when the snow season comes in. If you want to keep your sets out working, when the weather's cold, that's when the fur's the primest, remember. We're going to have to do a few things different. You know, in my sets, I like no mess. I like to go in, make the set, blend it, and get out. When you have snow, you don't have that option. You've got to make a big mess in order to get the set in. You're going to make tracks walking into the field. You're going to have to throw dirt around. You're just not going to be able to go in there and make a set like you've never been there before, like you can in a regular dirt situation. So what I've found is, instead of try to halfway do it, you might as well go in there and make a big mess and get the job done right. I get a commercial duty broom here. I'll get out of the truck, I'll grab this broom, and I'll grab my axe. That's what I'm going to chop my trap bed out with. Remember, we got frozen ground conditions under that snow. And I'm going to actually broom a path from my truck to the location I'm going to set. It might be this wide, all the way to the place. I like to drive right up next to it if I can. Get out, broom over to it, and then I'm going to broom out a pretty big area. You can see here I got an area about 10 by 15 that I broomed out. With this broom, if we've got 6 inches of snow on the ground, I can still move that snow pretty easily with this broom and get down to the bare dirt area. I broom out this square section, and then I can chop my trap beds out. I use my axe over here, and I'll try to chop it out kind of in a triangle type shape on both sides. We're kind of trying to make that football type shape, but we're chopping it out. So I'm going to go chop one place, then the other, then the other, and then the other. And I'm going to try to chop out a little slug of dirt with my axe. Once I've got my trap beds chopped out, and in a space this size, I'm going to put 2 sets in. One on this corner, and then one on the back corner. Once I get them chopped out, I'm going to walk back to the truck and get my equipment. Usually I'll leave my broom just laying in the circle, laying in my square area. I'm going to walk back to the truck, get rid of my axe, bring my equipment out, which I've already got here. I've got another tool made up here. It's kind of got a twisted end to it, kind of like an auger end. You can use that to drill your dirt holes in with, or your punch holes, or whatever you want to call them, your attractors. You can get a little leverage pushing on this bar. You can actually crank them holes into the ground, clear them out. And in frozen ground, I wish it went in this easy in frozen ground, but it doesn't. But you can actually make your holes that way. If the ground's not too frozen, you can still use your trap stakes and ream pretty easy. But once you get real hard frozen ground, you're going to have to auger it in. And believe me, that's about the only way you can get a hole of any depth. You want to have a fairly deep hole, at least a hole deep enough that they can't hook your bait out. Okay, as we talked about in fox and coyote trapping, the instructional tape, I like to use calcium chloride for the antifreeze. I've found that calcium chloride's the cheapest, most foolproof method to use. The only drawback to it is 2 things. It creates wet area over your trap because it draws moisture, and secondly, it rusts your traps. Well, the competition line trapper has to make sure that all of his traps are waxed, so that's going to take away that problem. And the fact that we can take this calcium chloride and sprinkle it around a little bit, because it is cheap, we can use a lot of it in the area. That's what I like to do in a situation like this. We've broomed down to the bare dirt as best as possible. Let's get some calcium and wing it around the set area a little bit, around this square. Let's try to soften this dirt up a little bit. Remember, that dirt's frozen, that fox is walking through the snow, he's going to come down here onto this. Let's give him a little bit of soft place to walk, and also make this whole area look a little moist instead of just over our pan areas, over our trap. And then we'll make our sets in the usual manner, antifreezing under the trap, around the trap, and on top. A lot of people say, why don't you have your antifreeze and dry dirt mixed when you bring it to the set? Well, I've found that if you'll mix it at the set, meaning you'll take calcium chloride raw and mix it with the dirt that you bring in, you know what you're working with. When you leave the area, when you leave that set, you know what you've got. Whereas when you just take a dirt that's already been pre-mixed, you may be grabbing handfuls of just dirt, you may be grabbing too much calcium chloride, this type of thing. So that's why I like to mix it at the set. It doesn't take that much longer, and I've got calcium chloride here to throw around. Once the sets are complete, I like to take some dirt and strew that around too. Throw some dirt up on top, maybe get your broom and try to whisk some of that dirt up on top of the snow. Make for a big mess here, almost like a meteor come flying in here and just blusted out a place in the field. It's going to create a lot of eye appeal, a lot of attraction to the fox, and he'll come walking down in here. He'll come into this square, your coyotes will come into these big square areas, and then they'll work around your sets. When I'm all done, I'll take all my equipment back to the truck and then come back for my broom last, and I'll always broom up the area again around the sets, kind of strew the area over, and then I'll actually follow my tracks out with the broom. I found it much better to make a trail back to my truck with the broom rather than to just walk with your feet, because even after a snow, if you'll notice, if you walk in a field with snow and then it snows again, it still looks like footprints, even though they're just little indentations that's been snowed in. If you drag a broom behind you, make a little trail in there, only the depth of the snow changes, and it's not that noticeable. If you get a little drifting effect, you're going to be in real good shape. And you'll find the foxes a lot of times will walk in on those trails. As the snow gets deeper, you may want to just clear out areas that are maybe 6-7 foot in circumference and then make a trail in between them. Almost like a barbell type principle where you have a circle with your set in and a little trail in between and another circle with your set in. Some other things to think about when you're trapping in snow is wind direction. If you get a lot of drifting in your area, think about which way the drifts are going to form and try to make your set so they won't get drifted under. If you go to all the work to move this snow back, to get everything ready, you don't want it to be drifted over in a day or two. You want it to be working for you for the rest of the time you're going to be trapping in that area. Pretty important things to think about. Wintertime trapping is a great time to be out. A lot of your other trappers aren't out anymore. They've just hung it up because it's getting too tough. The fox are on the move. They're looking for free food because it's hard work, looking for mice under the snow, frozen ground conditions. Your fox and coyotes are going to be a lot more responsive to the lures and baits you're using, which, by the way, you should be using some louder smells when you get in colder situations. Use some more tainted baits, meat-type baits, maybe some skunky smelling lures, louder smelling lures to get them fox and coyotes in from a distance. But when they're going to be that much more responsive to your sets in the wintertime because of the conditions that they have looking for food. It's a lot of work. You got to get out, you've got to work that snow away, you've got to get that trap into the ground, but you'll find that all in all, it's really going to pay for itself for you if you can get into some new fox areas. You don't want to trap areas that's been trapped before. Try to get as much territory lined up as you can, so when you get into new areas in the wintertime, a lot of guys say, I don't have no luck trapping in the wintertime. It's because they're trapping in places that are already trapped out. The fox there are educated already that are left. Those are the seed fox. They're supposed to be there. You want to go into new areas. You want to be catching pups that are coming through. They're going to work into these types of situations and you're going to pick them up.